weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Sunshine this afternoon with a high of 91, then tonight clear with a low of 74. Comedian Jessica Kirsten is bringing her high-energy stand-up to the Uptown Theater on Sunday, November 23rd. With her sharp wit and laugh-out-loud comedy, she's guaranteed to bring the house down for one unforgettable night. Get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 20, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Welcome to the Gaily Show, the only daily LGBTQ progressive radio news and talk show in the country. I'm your host, John Parker. With me is in the studio, executive producer Jim Pounds.
Look how colorful we are today.
I know.
I'm sorry you can't see that on the radio.
Well, if you're on the YouTube.
Yeah, you can.
If you're on the YouTube.
That's right.
Anyway. Patrick. Hey, Patrick in the control room. How was your weekend?
Doing pretty well. And to go off of Jim's comment, you're missing out on half the show if you're not watching the streams. You're missing the facial expressions, the eye rolls.
The glares. Yeah, exactly. That's the real relationship right there.
I have been known for my strongly worded letters and my on-point eye rolls.
Yeah, indeed.
Right. Well, if you're listening in the 2 p.m. Central Hour, we can take your calls at 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. What is on the show today? It is the second Monday of the month, or second Tuesday of the month, if you are in Chicago, and Samuel Clowes Huneke returns to discuss MAGA followers, Mahmoud versus Taylor, and the big ugly bill. Samuel is an award-winning historian of modern Europe and associate professor of history at George Mason University. We will talk to him in the second half hour of the show. Rosie O'Donnell responds to Trump's statement saying he wants to take away O'Donnell's citizenship, which underscores a reality that they are ready to take away people's citizenship, and there are plans in place. We will talk about that later in the hour. But up first, the EEOC is going to take up cases on discrimination against trans and queer people again in workplaces after a temporary ban. This is going to sound wonky, but it's related to, is the EEOC, where do you go to if you are being discriminated against in the workplace, right? Particularly if you're LGBTQ. This is important because before you can sue your employer through the with a lawyer, they tell you to go to the EEOC first and file a claim there. So if the EEOC isn't taking up your claim, you got a problem. If your employer is discriminating against you. So earlier this year, an EEOC stands for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. They actually dropped 7 cases against businesses that allegedly discriminated against trans and non-binary people. They just dropped those altogether.
No time.
I believe that was in February. Then in April, the EEOC directed their staff, directors, etc., who handle gender identity related specific cases to code them as the letter C. Now, what does that mean? According to the Associated Press, because I had to look this up, that is the lowest categorization in the EEOC's system. Basically, if something is meritless, like was bunk, then they gave it a C. So basically, they're saying any trans or non-binary person who is suing their employer, filing a complaint, that is now meritless. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Now, that raises a lot of questions about whether the EEOC was deliberately violating a Supreme Court decision. There are basically, for all the queer folks who are listening to this right now, there are basically 4 major Supreme Court cases that shape how us queer folks can live in this country that we need to know about. They're the 4 biggest life rafts in this hurricane of awful decisions from the Supreme Court. Bostock is one of them. And you can just say Bostock. Technically, it's Bostock v. Clayton County, but it's Bostock. It prohibited LGBTQ workplace discrimination against LGBTQ people. If the EEOC is no longer taking on cases alleging LGBTQ discrimination, then they are in violation of the law. So here's the big question of this. If you're sitting there going, well, I'm not part of the queer community, so why do I care? This is into a separation of powers issue. They are saying they weren't doing it. They paused it because of the president's executive order. Well, the executive order is not the law of the land. The Supreme Court, unfortunately, a lot of the time, is the law of the land. They make that's how our Constitution is set up. They make the final say on what is legal within the Constitution. Famously, the Supreme Court has gotten it wrong a lot of times, and subsequent courts have looked back at decisions and gone, wow, that was stupid. You were wrong. Let's revisit this. So the EEOC has decided, here are the numbers, though. AP News, in 2024, so last year, employees filed more than 3,000 cases of anti-LGBTQ discrimination with the EEOC. And that's on top of another 3,000 that were filed in 2023. All right, so we're dealing with a big number of cases. This month, the Washington Post is reporting that the EEOC is going to take up allegations of discrimination that, quote, fall squarely, end quote, under Bostock. So they are going to take these up again after a multiple month long pause. In their reporting, the Post didn't say why the EEOC backtracked, nor is there any evidence yet that the cases that the EEOC dropped earlier this year will be resumed. It's also unclear of whether or not employees can refile charges that were submitted during the pause or not, or if they try to in May and they were like, no, we're not taking these, can they now submit them again in July or in August? All of these things still need to be figured out, and hopefully there'll be continued reporting. And if we find out anything here as well, we will report on that. But the question is, did they think that they could get away with it? They were called out and then knew that they would lose if they tried, if they were sued, if it went back up to the Supreme Court. That's my theory. My speculation at this point was that they knew they would not be able to win if they allowed themselves to get sued by employees saying that you're not upholding the law, you're not enforcing the law, you're enforcing an executive order, which does not have the rule and force of law. Right. So they said, okay, fine, we will take these up again. And we will also give them the scrutiny and the higher level, that they deserve as, allegations of discrimination.
Mm-hmm. It just feels to me like we better start getting used to the idea that all of us LGBT people are going to start having to create companies and work for each other, because I don't trust the greater society, and I don't think government. I think the people that work in the federal government now have no loyalty to the country, but to a deity, what they think of as a deity. And so they're going to do whatever he tells them to do against the law or otherwise. And we see millions of examples of that now. So I'm not expecting legality or rule of law until we start to knock this enormous bust off its pedestal.
Well, and I can say, as a former chief diversity officer in higher ed, as a former affirmative action officer in higher ed, those positions were housed within human resources. I can tell you that there is an escalation process, right? So if an employee is claiming discrimination, it starts with the organization. And then the next step is either the EEOC or contacting a lawyer. But as I said earlier, a lot of times the lawyer will say, you have to go to the EEOC first.
Yeah, I understand.
And then the EEOC will determine whether they can move forward and resolve the situation. If they could also do mediation between yourself and the organization, or it can go to a lawyer. And those EEOC things, when they come in, typically when they're allowed to come in, when people are allowed to file complaints, those are serious. Those have there are lists of witnesses. There is evidence that needs to be found. It is a full-on investigation into an organization.
Well, I would suggest if people have issues that they make really detailed notes, and that they think of these people as conspirators, the people that are discriminating against them, because I think they are conspirators, and we'll be prosecuting them eventually.
I have to say, This is not legal advice.
No.
This is not legal advice, but phones have amazing microphones, and you need to look up in your state if you are a one-party recording rule, meaning that if you are a one-party recording state, you can take your phone into a meeting with your supervisor, and you don't need to tell them that you turned it on and it's recording the conversation. If it is a two-party state, that means that you need to tell the other person that you're recording them, that needs to be on the recording, and then you can use that as evidence, right? But even in a one-party state, Minnesota's a one-party state, you can, everybody's always got their phones on them. You can tuck it into your pocket. You can have it open, in your purse. You can just set it on the table and they could be recording, and you can have that evidence. Let me tell you something. You can have written notes and you can describe the conversation. If you've got audio, that is very difficult for them to
protect yourself. I wouldn't trust anybody right now. Honestly, I'd trust yourself and your instincts, and a lawyer if you have one. And even at that, I think we're all very vulnerable, and we're feeling vulnerable, rightfully so. And so we've got to get it's not our mojo, frankly. We're dealing with an illegal overtake of our government.
And again, it's nice to know, and that's why I wanted to report on it today. It is nice to know for employees that the EEOC is again accepting complaints.
Yes.
Yes, there is their trust in the system to investigate and whatnot. I feel like if you have good evidence and recordings, if you have extensive notes, if you have your emails, then you can use those, or any written communications that you've had with folks. You can witnesses. If you've got people who can say, yeah, this person was calling me, FG multiple times in the break room for weeks on end.
And a decent judge, non-corrupt judge.
There's no judge.
Oh.
In the investigation.
Right. But eventually, if it gets to
the
that
EEOC,
point,
well, yes. If
you need a lot of competence that I'm worried about right now. Where's a competent lawyer? Where's a trustworthy judge? Which closet
there are
they
some.
hiding in?
There are still.
Oh, I know there are.
Obama judges. There are still Biden judges.
There
are still Bush judges that have turned on the.
But
there are even Trump judges that have turned on.
But these are people that are acting against the interests of the American people and gleefully. And so I'm very worried about the enthusiasm they're bringing to destroying our institutions. So we're going to have to push back harder than they're pushing us. And that's going to take a lot.
Protect yourself as employees. Make sure that you're protecting yourself.
Yep.
We are going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Rosie Trump feud, the Rosie v. Trump feud, and put it in the context of the larger conversation of denaturalization and the U.S. government's efforts to take away citizenship from people who have earned their citizenship. So you are listening to The Gailey Show. Check out more progressive news and talk at am950radio.com and heartlandsignal.com.
This is Alex Knorr from Buzzcut Mowing, a young, hardworking entrepreneur serving the Southwest Metro with affordable lawn care. I take the hard work off your plate with weekly mowing. I also offer leaf cleanups, aeration, dethatching, tree trimming, and mulch installation. I'll keep your lawn beautiful so you can enjoy your weekends with the people who matter most. Visit buzzcutmowingmn.com. That's buzzcutmowingmn.com.
The Zero Res Master Certified Area Rug Cleaning Team in St. Louis Park is having the biggest cleaning sale of the year. Clean one rug and get 20% off. 2 rugs, 25% off. 3 area rugs get 50% off your area rug cleaning purchase. Pickup and delivery options are available. We're getting into the heat of the summer. You're going to be having barbecues, friends and family over at your house. Your rug called that's tired of being stomped on, spilled on, sneezed on, and ignored like a salad at a barbecue. We treat your rugs gently, even the fancy ones you bought on vacation and immediately regretted. Wool, synthetic, braided, patterned, passed down from grandma. If it lays flat and collects dirt, we clean it. Schedule your appointment at zeroresminnesota.com or call 9520-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. Spell it backward or forward spells the same. It still spells, dang, that rug looks good. Zero Res.
For a decade, it's captivated Twin Cities audiences, and now the cultural phenomenon Glen Sheen returns. This captivating musical by Jeffrey Hatcher and Chan Poling features strong performances from a talented 7-member ensemble and Ron Peluso's brilliant direction. It's a limited engagement July 7th through the 25th at the History Theater in downtown St. Paul. Get tickets at historytheater.com. That's History Theater, spelled R-E.com.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our listeners. How important are business values to you? When you need high-quality digital print, it matters who you work with. You see, Minuteman Uptown is unique. We're one of the only union print shops in Minnesota providing our team with living wages and benefits. We believe in second chances for justice-impacted individuals who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I'm John Parker. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. If you're listening in the 2 p.m. Central Hour, we can take your calls, 952-946-6205, 946-6205. Patrick in the control room came in and told us in the break that talking about protecting yourself, if you want to record people in Illinois, the state of Illinois, it is a two-party state. So if you're an employee and you are being discriminated against, you do have to get permission from another party before you can record that. Otherwise, that is not admissible in court. You can't use that evidence in court. Minnesota, the last time I checked, is a one-party state as well.
I'm glad Patrick is fact-checking us, at least.
I didn't say otherwise, but this is a team effort of recording the news and the facts.
A village.
Right? As they say in Chicago,
right.
WCPT, where facts matter. But folks, you do need to be protecting yourselves at your job. And written documentation, meaning if you come out of a situation where someone says something to you, write it down. Make sure that other people, like if you see other people were there and witnessing it, write down their names. You don't even need to go and say, hey, will you testify for me? Just note who was in the room when the discriminatory behavior happened. And if you are in a one-party state and you can get the recording, then do that, because it is
good advice.
Good advice. You need to find ways of protecting yourself. And I think a lot of people get really nervous about that, get Midwestern nice about that, where they're like, oh no, that feels so aggressive. I don't want to do that. Protecting yourself is not aggressive. It is protecting yourself.
I would like to protect myself by asking Rosie O'Donnell if I can come live with her in Ireland.
Okay, well, Rosie O'Donnell. I do not understand how Donald Trump has time to keep track of Rosie. I think this really speaks to how petty he is. Like, really, let's just sit down and think about it. This guy, unfortunately, is the president of the United States.
Sadly.
Is he trolling her accounts? Does he have a Google alert?
No idea.
Has he assigned other people to watch her social media to know when she is criticizing him? Like in the deluge of comments and videos and posts tagging him or mentioning him, how does he get a hold of Rosie's social media? Is he following Rosie? Like when you actually sit down about the logistics of this, it's really bonkers.
Remember, he hates women to the core, all the way down the line. Disrespects women. So any woman that says anything to him other than "you're handsome,"
I mean, he does watch TV a lot, so maybe that's where we're, but even then, I don't know. Not every media outlet is reporting on what Rosie O'Donnell says. Anyway, she went on TikTok last week to criticize his administration's response to the floods in Texas, and which basically everyone in the world has done. And I do want to point out, this is fulfilling a campaign promise. For everyone that's like, he's not using FEMA. He said he hated FEMA. MAGA said they hated FEMA.
Mhm.
They wanted to get rid of FEMA. So this isn't, in my mind, a dereliction of duty. It is a fulfillment of a campaign promise.
I thought the criticism was of how terrible the preparedness was by the Texas officials, warning people about
all of it, but particularly the lack of, when people are like, oh, Kristi Noem waited 3 days before she signed off on money from FEMA. That is fulfilling. They don't want FEMA to respond to these things.
That's right.
So, okay.
FEMA bad in MAGA world.
So she criticized him. And of course he runs immediately to Truth Social and writes, because of the fact that Rosie O'Donnell is not in the best interests of our great country, I am giving serious consideration to taking away her citizenship. She is a threat to humanity and should remain in the wonderful country of Ireland if they want her.
He's
so
ludicrous.
She replied via Instagram that the president of the United States has always hated the fact that I see him for who he is, a criminal con man, sexual abusing liar, out to harm our nation to serve himself. That's why I moved to Ireland. She also posted a photo of Trump with Jeffrey Epstein and said, hey, Donald, you rattled again? 18 years later, and I still live rent-free in that collapsing brain of yours. Now, the feud goes back to 2006. When Rosie called him a snake oil salesman, compared him rather to the snake oil salesman on Little House on the Prairie when she was hosting The View, or one of the co-hosts of The View. She said that he cheated on his ex-wives and had gone bankrupt. Anyway, the question here is around denaturalization.
Yes.
Right. And this is not something where we can just out of hand go, wow, he'll just say anything on social media. He's trying to get the clicks. He's trying to get the headlines. He's trying to get the eyeballs. So according to a June 11th memo, this is DOJ, Department of Justice memo, the Assistant Attorney General Brett A. Shumate declared that denaturalization is now a top 5 enforcement priority. That they are doing it, and they're giving U.S. attorneys as much latitude as possible to pursue these cases. And they're doing it through the civil division. I know, again, we're dealing with all of this like wonky lawyer talk today on the show, but the bottom line is this. By doing it in the civil division, if they haul you in before a court, you are not entitled to an attorney. And the government has a low bar of evidence to present to prove your alleged wrongdoing. And in NPR, they interviewed Steve Lubey, who is a professor emeritus at Northwestern University. And he said the new DOJ language about what constitutes quote unquote crimes is, quote, so vague as to be meaningless.
Purposefully. So he could just get rid of the people he doesn't like.
So,
which is an ever-growing list.
Stephen Miller, after the election, said that they were going to be turbocharging denaturalization. Right now, they're saying that denaturalization is for folks who applied for and became citizens of the United States, of which there are, I'm not going to say the number because I don't want to get it wrong.
Several thousand.
In the millions, right?
In the millions. Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
The Supreme Court, there is a case that said that they cannot be doing this. The Obama administration actually was the administration that started redoing this over again. It had been down to like single-digit cases for years since this 1960 Supreme Court decision. But the Obama administration found it was Operation, I'm blanking on the name of the operation, but basically they were using a lot of digital tools to find people who they said were supporting terrorism, and they brought forward facts. And they prosecuted these folks, and if they were successful, then they were denaturalized, and the people were kicked out of the country. When the Trump administration came in, they moved it from criminal proceedings into the civil court, and they're redoing that again this year, which again means that you're not entitled to an attorney. So you have to go and find an attorney. Does anybody, like right now, I would have no idea where to find an immigration attorney who could defend me on any alleged criminal offenses that they wanted to bring forward here. The bar of proof much lower in a civil division.
So people are very vulnerable, which is what he lives for.
But we're in this, we're continuing to be in this moment. Here is another one where floods in Texas. He said on the campaign trail many times, I don't like FEMA. FEMA is terrible. he is not having FEMA respond to the Texas
So
floods.
you're on your own.
Right. And here he's talking about deporting Rosie O'Donnell,
Yeah.
and we can't just sit there anymore and go, oh, well, he's just, trying to get the clicks.
Right.
They have a plan for denaturalization.
Yep.
Anyway, none of this would be possible without our sponsors. Listen to them in this break. Tell them that you heard about them on The Gaily Show. Better do business with them. Tell them you heard about them on WCPT 820 or AM 950 Radio.
Wake up with your favorite sexy liberal, me, Stephanie Miller.
Hey, Sam.
Hello.
You are on a hot mic, so folks on YouTube can hear everything that we're saying right now. So just FYI. It sounds like your mic and everything is working. Yeah?
Great. Yeah, seems
Okay.
to.
Perfect. How are you? Yeah. How are you holding is the appropriate question.
In my personal life, I'm doing well. It's the summer,
Yeah, I know, right? Trying to make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So like last time, if you watch the chat here, I'll put in the time cues.
Okay.
Otherwise, do you want to start with Mahmoud?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Perfect. Any questions for me before we switch back over to the feed?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you.
Talk soon.
Eat.com.
Are you remote workers putting your company at risk? Not sure what steps to take to secure your data? Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide with the 5 steps to securely work from home. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. Over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
It's no secret that medical care costs are soaring, with nursing home and skilled nursing care costs being some of the highest. You don't have to deplete your savings in order to receive long-term care. At Schroman Law, we work with families to develop and implement strategic planning for medical assistance for long-term care, for assisted living, nursing home care, or home-based care. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Sunshine this afternoon with a high of 91, then tonight clear with a low of 74. Spend your summer with some of the hottest musical acts around at Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley. Crooner's is located just north of I-694 off Highway 65 and Moore Lake Drive. Visit croonersmn.com to view their schedules and food menus.
AM 950 KTN up, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk where facts matter. Welcome back to the Gaily Show, the only daily LGBTQ progressive radio news and talk show in the country. It is 33 minutes after the hour already. I'm your host, John Parker. In the studio with me is my executive producer, Jim Pounds. Sam Clowes Huneke is an award-winning associate professor of history at George Mason University, a historian of modern Germany. He is the author of numerous books and articles, including States of Liberation, Gay Men Between Dictatorship and Democracy in Cold War Germany, and A Queer Theory of the State. Both must-reads. I'm saying that as a personal recommendation, 5 stars, no notes. Every second Monday of the month in Minneapolis or the second Tuesday in Chicago, Samuel joins us to talk history and politics. Hey, Sam, welcome back to the Gaily Show.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, can we start with the Supreme Court? Mahmoud versus Taylor, the book ban, essentially giving churches, mosques, and temples veto power over public school curriculum. Very curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's bad. I'm excited for the day when we no longer have to wake up in fear of what horrible ruling the Supreme Court is about to hand down. So essentially, as I understand this ruling, which was just handed down last month, a school district in Maryland had approved several LGBTQ plus themed books as part of the curricula. Initially they did have an opt-out option where when those books were being taught in class, a parent could withdraw their student for that day or that period. Essentially, the idea being if you had a parent who was, religious in some way and didn't want their child learning about same-sex relationships, they wouldn't be exposed to it. But the school district found that this was increasingly onerous, that they had more and more students opting out, or their parents opting out on their behalf. And that also was, they worried it was creating a sort of stigma for children who came from those sorts of families. And so they got rid of the opt-out option, and the parents sued. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, in fact, you do need an opt-out on religious grounds, essentially because the First Amendment says that the government won't essentially establish any official religion. This is the sort of famed separation of church and state that we have, although in this case, they're sort of weaponizing it to impose religion on state functions, right? It's essentially giving religions or whatever idiosyncratic interpretations of religions individual parents have an ability to censor what is being taught in schools. It's obviously bad for queer people. It means that either you'll have school districts and teachers who do teach this material, but you'll have some chunk of the class missing, which creates, as a teacher, I can say that creates kind of administrative nightmares. If you have students who are missing class and then you have to somehow come up with other curricula for them. It also means that other school districts will simply, or teachers will simply forgo teaching these texts. And it will, increase stigma towards queer people, which, we already deal with in our daily lives. And it's just going to make it worse, which of course, I think is the intended effect of this. As I also understand it, the progressive justices in their dissent sort of point out, well, where does this stop, right? This is lunacy. If you can do it for something as trivial as a LGBTQ themed children's book, why couldn't someone object to any number of other things, right? I mean, could a parent who takes, sort of Christian teachings about money lending literally say, well, I don't want my child learning about capitalism, right? I don't want anything that deals with capital being taught in my child's class. It's just insane. But of course, it's not meant to be taken in that kind of a literal sense. It's meant to be taken as a sort of, there's a great line in Angels in America where Louis Ironson calls the decision that the Mormon guy he's seeing a bit of sort of sophisticated legal, gay bashing, except I think he uses a more colorful term.
Right.
That's a great scene.
Yeah.
I could talk about Angels in America all day long.
Maybe in a happier time we'll be able to.
There is an excellent production of it in Chicago right now. If you are an 8-hour driving radius, you should get there to see it. I say that as if I've seen it. I haven't, but we're trying to get down there to see it. But I wanted to. I'm curious, Sam, about my counter argument to this has been: if you don't like the curriculum of a school, take your kids out of the school.
Go to a Christian school.
Go to a Christian school. Go to a Islam school. Go to a Jewish school. Like, if you want your kids to learn a faith-based education, send them to a school that provides that,
and leave the rest of us alone.
No, but of course that these are people who think that public education shouldn't exist, and to the extent that it does exist, it should exist to impose a very specific set of religious and moral ideas on students.
Right.
Well, I know evolution will be next.
Oh, God. I mean,
They famously don't believe not only in evolution, but there are way too many people that are retrying to prove that the Earth is flat. And
yes, I increasingly on social media get fed these videos of people arguing that the Earth is flat, and I think, good God, we are cooked.
It makes me think of the of Easter Island, where we don't know why everything went south on Easter Island, but it's just I'm like, are we just going to start making fancy statues and just start putting them up on the coastlines, and then everything's just going to collapse on the interior, and then everyone will be like, what are these fancy statues? Well, we collectively decided.
Well, I sort of worry that AI is that. There's, I mean, I'm a huge hater of AI, both because I think it's fundamentally not as good as people are hyping it up to be for the most part. But I also think it has really deleterious, social, intellectual, cultural consequences that many people are not thinking about or are willfully ignoring. And there was a study, an MIT study that came out maybe a week or two ago that said, or that found that when people used AI to complete tasks, and I think in this case it was essay writing, not only did the people who used it not get the cognitive benefit of doing the task, but they actually got stupider. They got worse. They got worse at doing that task as a result of having used AI.
We've seen examples from Delta Airlines emails that have information about our flight that are completely wrong: dates, times, location. I mean, it's like you can't trust communications from the airline anymore.
There's that Apple Mac commercial right now where they're like, we can summarize all of your notes for you. And I'm like, this is a disaster.
Well, and I think, okay, in a couple generations, if we continue on this path, we'll have all of these sophisticated systems. I mean, like nuclear power plants, and no one will know how to run them. I mean, that will be AI is our giant statues, right?
Yep.
But and meanwhile we have Grok saying that he's Hitler. It's Hitler.
That's the Twitter AI bot.
Yes, that's the Twitter AI, the Elon. Well, that was too quote unquote woke, right? I mean, it was delivering factual answers, and then so they tweaked it, and now it's just a Nazi.
Basically, it sounds Grok. That sounds like a troll, a literal one. From like Lord of the Rings.
Oh my God.
I wanted to ask you. I wanted to start off with the Supreme Court because your article Hope Sinks from the Baffler earlier this year. I have given it free rent. It has a rent in my brain. It has stayed there for a while now. At the end of it, you were mapping out 3 potential directions for the country. Recognizing that we all don't know what's going to happen, but based off of the history, you're saying these are 3 general directions that we could go in. One of which you labeled your worst case scenario is sort of a permanent revolution with more and more radical right-wing sex SECTS driving the MAGA movement further to the right, which could lead to recriminalization of same-sex relations, full persecution of trans and queer people, banning birth control, banning porn, banning no-fault divorce. You said that was your worst case scenario. The other 2 were sort of a progressive backlash, still hoping for that one, and a kind of stagnation stasis where things get back to the 50s and it sucks, but we're sort of stuck there. The Supreme Court, though, as I continue to watch them try to find every single way to destroy Pride Month every year, do you feel like they're sort of gunning for option number 1 here, that they're just like, we're headed in this direction whether you all want to come along or not?
It's hard to say. It would be really interesting to get inside their heads because, I suspect someone like Alito or Thomas, yes, that is where they would like to be headed. The rest of them, I don't really know. I think they're certainly aiming at least for option 2, right? I think they want to go back to a world pre-Griswold versus Connecticut. There's no federal right to privacy. The government can meddle as much as it wants in your private sex life, in those sorts of decisions. This is a world without, obviously, regular access to abortion, without regular access to birth control either, for that matter, where sort of non-conforming, non-normative genders and sexualities can be banned, can be criminalized. So I think that is very much at a minimum. The sort of really extreme, I think part of the problem, or part of the problem with Trumpism and MAGA is that you have all of these sort of quote unquote establishment conservatives, and I would put, like John Roberts in that category, who somehow have this idea that at some point they are going to moderate, they are going to chill out, they're going to cut taxes and appoint conservative judges and whatever, not do anything else. Which obviously is not how it works. And I think actually the most worrisome thing, which I think you were just mentioning before I jumped on, of the last week or two, was Trump's threat to try and take away Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship. And she of course, is a American citizen by birth, I believe. There is no process for doing that. That is not something that the government can do. And yet it is well within belief that they might try to do that to her or to someone else. I mean, they've already, deported citizens. As the case I know about, they're cases of young children who are citizens being deported with a mother who is not a citizen. That's already disturbing enough as it is, right? But the idea that you're actively going to take someone whose citizenship is not even being contested, right? No one's saying, oh, she wasn't actually born in the country, or right? This is simply saying this is someone who's a citizen and we are going to take that citizenship away. And as a historian of Germany, that is absolutely something that sets alarm bells ringing, because one of the first things the Nazis did on the path to the Holocaust was to take away Jews' citizenship. This is a well-established way of stripping those who you want to persecute of rights, of protections, and of giving a kind of veneer of legality to whatever it is you want to do with them. And so it's deeply disturbing that this administration and people like Stephen Miller in it, they understand that. They understand how powerful citizenship is, and that's why they're attacking it.
I think it's really rich of Roberts. I think he's very dangerous, particularly when it looks at executive power. I mean, he sits there and gives all the latitude he wants to the executive, and then has the audacity to go on a speech and go, why are people mad at me? Or why do people think we're not a political entity, we're nonpartisan? It's like
anyone who thinks that at this point is either willfully ignorant or actually ignorant. I mean, I saw the case about nationwide injunctions, where the Supreme Court.
Can we pick that one up after the break? I got to fit in a hard break here. We're gonna have one last break, but still lots to get to with Dr. Samuel Clowes Huneke, Associate Professor of History at George Mason University. You need to check out his books. We're gonna include links in our show notes and on our website and our Blue Sky for how you can purchase those. More to come. Stay tuned. After this break, we'll have more with Sim.
Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey, bacon, avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
Hey, it's Tom. There's a war being waged on clean energy. A bill in Congress could eliminate the 30% federal tax credit for solar by the end of 2025. And once it's gone, it may never come back. Fossil fuel giants and their MAGA friends in Washington want to kill green energy. But you can fight back. Going solar with All Energy Solar isn't just smart, it's a form of resistance. You choose where your money goes, not to utility companies, not to fossil fuel billionaires, but toward clean, renewable power for your home. A system from All Energy Solar works in Minnesota year-round because it runs on sunlight, not heat. So even in the dead of winter, you're generating electricity. And All Energy Solar helps you save with every rebate and incentive available. This is the moment to act. Waiting means risking with this tax credit and giving the upper hand to MAGA Republicans. So get your free consultation today at allenergysolar.com and take back your power.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. The month of July is National Carpet Cleaning Month, and because of that, Zero Res is offering a purchase of 3 rooms of carpet cleaned. Get 1 room free plus $50 off an air duct cleaning. Maybe you're having a barbecue for the 4th of July. We'll also have Aquatennial coming up in Minneapolis later this month. You want to make sure your home is fresh and clean for your friends and family coming over to celebrate. If your carpet's looking more like a snowbank in late March, muddy, crunchy, and kind of mysterious, it's time to call Zero Res, don't you know? These folks come in with their fancy schmancy ZR water. It's like regular water, but with a master's degree in cleanliness. Zero Res can handle it all. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, air ducts, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified. So it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res today. Schedule your appointment at ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. We are coming up on the top of the hour already. Every month we are lucky and grateful to host Samuel Clowes Huneke, who is an award-winning associate professor of history at George Mason University. Sam, before the break, you were bringing up the Supreme Court's recent decision on national injunctions. And for folks,
Yes.
we've been so lawyer and political focused today on the show, but here's one more term. National injunction basically being, hey, this group of people is suing the government, like, what was this particular case about?
It was about the deportation flights to third
right.
countries.
And basically the judge is saying, hey, this might be illegal, so you can't do this anywhere in the country. And the Supreme Court was like, no, it's only for the people that are suing the government. It can do it to everybody else that they want because they're not party to the lawsuit. Anyway, Sam, you want to pick it up from there?
And I believe it also limits it's limited to the people or the class that is suing. And also I think geographically it's limited to where the judge sits. And I may, I'm not a lawyer, so I may have some of that slightly wrong, but essentially, as you say, an individual district court judge can no longer tell the federal government it can't do something, point blank. And in a normal era of government, that might make sense. You wouldn't want, there were many nationwide injunctions under Biden, right? And was these individual judges sitting in like single judge districts in Texas were able, to sort of put the kibosh on a lot of Biden's policies. However, I saw a graphic recently that compared Trump 2.0 to Biden. Under Biden, the Supreme Court let every single one of those stand. Under Trump, the majority of them, something like 2/3 of them, they have reversed. They said, actually, no, you can go ahead. Even if what you're doing is illegal, you can go ahead and do it while the court case plays out. Right? Because essentially the idea of an injunction is you say, okay, you're doing something that is quite possibly illegal. At the very least, it's harming someone. And so because it might be illegal, we're not going to let you do it until we sort out whether or not it is legal. Right? Such as deporting people to Sudan or, El Salvador or wherever it may be. Anyway, the point being that
I did not know the fact of the Biden versus the Trump. I'm gonna lose my mind over that one. So I do want to ask you a question though.
Yes.
About the big ugly bill. And you studied Germany, so you've studied Weimar, Nazi Germany, West Germany, East Germany under the Soviet Union. Under any of those iterations, where the far right Nazis, they were in control at one point. Did the followers of the party or of these far right parties, were they actively trying to get their leadership to dismantle social services that they were benefiting from? FEMA in Texas, Medicaid and rural hospitals, SNAP benefits for white families. Like, they are having such glee that Trump is gutting these programs, and we're supposed to, in a democracy, vote for someone that we think is going to make our lives better. And yet they're getting anti-trans policies, which is absolutely nothing for them. And in the meantime, tariffs, FEMA, Medicaid, SNAP, the whole big ugly bill is making their lives worse, and they're cheering about it. And I'm just sitting here trying to find a historical precedent to this. Is there one?
I think, I think the best, I don't have one that's quite as blatant as this, right? And the thing is that this is just the traditional Republican playbook on steroids. For my entire life, the Republican Party has, once they've gotten in office, they have cut taxes for rich people, they've cut services for poor people, and yet they then bill themselves as the, party of the working class, which is simply absurd. So I think to some extent this isn't out of step with what the Republicans have been doing for quite some time. In terms of the Nazis, I think there's some kind of a similarity in that in the Weimar era, when they were competing in democratic elections, they were this kind of ideological grab bag where they were just sort of borrowing from lots of different parties. And this is what scholars like me who study Nazism find really fascinating about it, that it actually, fascism is a new kind of political movement. It's not simply a conservative in the sort of old school sense. And so there was an element of them saying, we are standing up for the working people. We want workers to be taken care of. We want to make sure no, German is starving on the streets. And especially in the context of the Great Depression, that was very appealing. Now, when they came into office, of course, they immediately crushed unions. They banned all unions. They banned, obviously, all opposing political parties as well. They sort of amalgamated all of the unions under the so-called German Labor Front, which essentially was a way for corporations to kind of keep tighter control of labor in Germany. On the one of the reasons that many Germans sort of think about the 30s, post-33 somewhat fondly, or did even after the war, is that they did restore basically full employment in Germany. However, real wages sank during that time because, again, there was no bargaining power. People were generally making the same amount of money or more because they were working longer hours, but for less pay. And so there are examples of that, I think, with the Nazis where they promised one thing and then came into office and did something quite different. I mean, they basically governed economically in the interests of the elites, of the sort of, people who oversaw the big German industrial cartels. Another example with the Nazis is their policy towards women. Women were very important to the early Nazi party in the Weimar period in terms of they can keep it afloat. In some parts of Germany, more women voted for the Nazi party than men. Hitler always, said that women were his most important constituency. And yet, as they promised, and as we know, they were incredibly misogynistic and sort of forcefully removed women from public life.
All right, folks, this is why you need to be reading Sam's books. You can connect with Sam at samuelcloweshuneke.com on Blue Sky and Instagram. He is at SC Huneke. Thank you, Sam, for joining us here today. It's always great to talk with you. We'll see you again next month. Up next on WCPT 820 is Choose Views with Richard Chu on AM 950 Radio. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio, and then step into the unknown with Greg Bakken on Ghostbox Radio. And until tomorrow, everyone, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.